Hi and welcome to the Cloaked Hedgehog's YouTube channel. Today I'm gonna continue to talk about some of the sightings from my Dogman Sightings map, and today we're gonna do Minnesota. This report comes from phantomsandmonsters.com. I live in Taylor's Falls, Minnesota, and I was driving north on Wild Mountain Road around 7 a.m. on January 2nd. I was heading for the ski area when I saw some kind of animal running in the field towards the river. I pulled off the road and grabbed my binoculars. It looked like a large wolf, but it was different. By that time, some guy in a truck pulled up and was wondering what I was looking at. I told him that I think there's a large wolf in the field. He got out of the truck and asked to use the binoculars. He said he didn't think it was a wolf, and that it looked like it was chasing something. We stood for a few minutes watching. It would run into the woods and then pop back into the field for a bit. The light was getting better, so I grabbed my parka and started to walk closer to get a better look. The other guy said he had to leave, but did say again that he didn't think it was a wolf. I was about half a mile from the ski area, near one of the trail roads. I started to walk towards the river. I was about 100 feet from where I saw the animal from the road when I heard an owl screech coming from the woods to my right. On the edge of the woods, this huge dog came running out of the trees. The best way to describe it was that it looked like a big hyena, but it ran on two back legs and bent over. It had woolly black hair all over its body and a long thick tail. It must have weighed 200 pounds or more. I've been in the woods all my life and I have never seen anything like this. It looked over at me but continued to run from right to left in front of me. It also made a steady, loud panting sound as it ran. I turned on a pivot and ran out of there, hoping this animal wasn't going to chase me. When I got to the car, an old man had pulled off and was standing there watching me. He wondered what I was doing. I yelled at him to get the hell out of there and said that there's a monster dog out there. I think he believed me because the look on his face showed fear, like he knew something was really out there. I didn't go to the ski area. Instead, I went back home, all shook up and asking myself what I saw. This one comes from cryptidswikia.com. I live in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, which is in west central Minnesota, about an hour drive from Fargo, North Dakota. My mother-in-law lives out in the country, about 3-4 miles out of Fergus Falls, and I was staying there while my wife and her mother went shopping in town. They called me and asked if I wanted to go to a 7 p.m. movie, so I left the house at about 6:45 p.m. to meet them at the theater. About 2 miles from their house on a country road known as Wendell Road, along the Mistinka River, I saw 3 white-tailed deer. 2 of the deer were rather small, probably just yearlings, and a larger doe who I assumed was their mother. Me being an avid hunter, lover of wildlife, and future wildlife biologist, stopped to look at the deer. I should also mention that I hunt in the area and have spent my whole life in the Fergus Falls area. The deer were following a small creek bed, which is in fact the Mistinka River, so there were hardly any trees, except for one. Maybe because I didn't see it there, because of the tree, but I just noticed something crouching behind the tree on my side of the road, looking at the deer, and to my belief, hunting them. It just sat there, looking at the deer, taking no notice of me, even though I was in my truck no more than 40 yards away, with a clear view, with nothing obstructing my view of it. It had one hand on the tree that it was bracing itself with. What struck me as shocking was the fact that it seemed to be a 2-legged creature and not a 4-legged one. Its hands appeared to have opposable thumbs and were rather slender and long, very unlike a wolf. The creature looked as though if it stood upright it would be over 7 feet tall, with a protruding muzzle, broad shoulders, a slender waist, thick, muscular thighs, and being as there was snow on the ground, I couldn't see the feet. He was deep, dark brown in color throughout the body. After several seconds of looking at the creature in shock, the deer ran off. Then something amazing happened. It looked right at me, as though blaming me for losing his meal. He just sat there, looking at me, blinking but not moving. This scared the crap out of me, so I hit the gas pedal and drove off. It was very dark after the movie, so I didn't much feel like trudging through 3.5 feet of snow with the possibility of a monster lurking in the area who is currently looking for a meal that I scared off. So at about 10 a.m., I went back there and walked down to the tree. Under the tree there was no snow, so there were no tracks that I could see. But leading up to the tree, there were 3 tracks leading in from my grandmother-in-law's field, which was hard black dirt. And if you know what a Minnesota field looks like in late winter, early spring, you can't make anything out of the dirt. The tracks I did find were only about 6-7 inches in length, but were clearly canine prints. This one also comes from cryptidswiki.com. I was a security forces airman working 3rd shift on base patrol. Now mind you, this is an Air National Guard base that I worked at full time. It's on the north side of Duluth, Minnesota, next to the international airport. North to northeast is nothing but large wooded areas, forest areas. 3rd shift on the base was pretty boring, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and us full-timers worked a skeleton crew, usually only 5 to 6 of us on 3rd shift. I was in the patrol truck, doing my usual rounds, checking doors and fence lines. Late at night on the north side of the base was usually creepy enough when patrolling by yourself. Anyways, I was on this road, driving towards our baseball field, when my headlights caught a pair of eyes reflecting back at me. They were almost eye level with me, and I was sitting in an F-150. Around this time, a few of the guys had been seeing this huge buck around the property, like a 16-pointer or something around that size. I was about 80 yards or so away when I saw these eyes reflecting back at me, so I'm thinking it was a big deer. I gotta see this thing, so I hit the gas and start speeding towards the field. This is where it all happened so fast. It's almost hard to explain. There was a little slope behind the baseball field. It sloped down probably about 12 to 15 feet into a brush line. The brush went about 30 feet, then turned into a thick tree line. The brush was probably armpit high to me and pretty tough to traverse through, being so thick. As I turned into the baseball field and turned the truck towards the thing, I just caught the rear end of it leaping down the slope below the line of sight of my headlights. All I got to look at was the back end of the thing, and it was big. The best I can do to describe it is to say that it was wolf-dog-like in nature. It had a long tail, longer than 2 feet. The hind legs looked exactly like that of a dog's, same with the back paws, but the paws were huge. They were bigger than my hands for sure. The hair or fur was wavy, yet matted and thick. The color was blondish or very light brown. I didn't notice any gray in it, but this all happened within 2-3 seconds. I sat in my patrol truck for a couple of seconds, confused and thinking, I know what I saw, but it couldn't have been what I saw. So I hopped out with my flashlight and my M16 rifle and walked to the edge of the slope. All I heard was the thing running through the woods in front of me, heading in a northwest direction, and this thing sounded like a moose charging through the trees. It made a lot of noise. That's when I started to get really scared, thinking, if this is some sort of wolf or whatever it could be, my M16 isn't gonna do a thing to this animal. So I jumped back into my patrol truck as fast as I could and headed back to the SF headquarters. I never told any of the other members about this for fear of ridicule or being called crazy. There is no way I misidentified this thing. I'm a trained observer, an avid hunter, and have worked with animal rehabilitation with the Minnesota DNR in the past. I know my animals and the North Woods extremely well. I saw exactly what I saw, and that was the back end of a very large wolf dog thing that basically had its eyes level with mine while I was in a patrol truck. The back end was definitely much larger than any of the largest deer or black bears I've seen. The points I remember the clearest were the tail and back paws, as well as the texture and color of the hair and fur. This is my story. I have never told it to anyone in fear of ridicule. I swear it to be the truth. This encounter comes from paranormal phenomena at about.com. 2 years ago in Janesville, Minnesota, in November during first deer season, I went out and sat in a tree stand in the early morning with my shotgun. I had heard growling and large footsteps. I thought it was a large coyote, but then it came out into the clearing, and it was 5 feet tall at the shoulder and dark brown, almost black, like a large dog. Only its front paws were almost hands, and its tail was long like a cat's, 3 feet long. As it growled, I could see its teeth, and they were almost the size of my shotgun shells, 2.5 inches. I watched it come my way, and I realized that it was following my scent. I, being scared and not wanting to die, raised my gun and pushed the safety forward. When it clicked, the animal looked straight at me and started to go right toward the tree I was in. I shot 3 times. The first 2 hit a tree behind it, but the third hit it in the chest as far as I could tell. All it did was stumble, then turn and run into the thick brush nearby. I was so scared that it might be out there that I stayed in the stand for 3 hours. At noon or so, I decided to make a run to the truck. When I got to where it had been hit, I only found a little blood, like the bullet didn't even go through the skin. And the blood stunk and was dark red, almost black, so I ran to my truck. Later that year, when I was trapping, I saw its tracks next to a destroyed trap set and a bunch of blood and fur of a raccoon, from what I could tell. I have never gone back to that woods. Well, that's all for today, but feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any future videos. Be safe, and I'll see you next time.